Good afternoon and welcome back to yet another edition of the Coach's Corner. Welcome to my office. My name is Walter Beede, aka Baseball Lifer 11 on Twitter, and here on YouTube, Baseball Lifer. And what I try and do is answer questions from the perspective as a former player, as a former head coach at the high school and NCAA level, but most importantly, as a dad. Just try to give some insight, thoughts, opinions, and perspective with regard to children, youth sports, specifically baseball, and try to answer some parents' questions. And if you like the content and if you like the channel, even though it's brand new, I ask you to do two things. First one, home run, boom, hit the subscribe button, and also like the video. But more importantly, if you have a question, something that you want me to answer in the future, just comment down below and I'll get to those questions, each and every one that comes in. So today I have a friend that I've known for a few years, been working over the course of social media with his son with regard to baseball. Matt is from Massachusetts, Sterling, Massachusetts. Welcome aboard, Matt. Thank you for joining me today.
Walter, thank you for the time. It's greatly appreciated.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate your time today. I know you had a busy weekend and it's Labor Day. So I want to be able to answer. I know you have boys that are at different ages and different stages of their athletic careers, but what's a question that you might have as it pertains to whether it being an athlete as overall or a baseball player at the ages of 12 through 15?
Yeah, great. Thank you. So I'll start with my oldest. He is 14. It'll be 15 next year. He is electing to not play travel ball at U15 level and is focusing on strength and conditioning and is going in a private facility 3 days a week. So what I'm trying to uncover is how to best get his development skills through the winter time. I've arranged for him to have some availability to batting cage, but what specifically things should I be working on with him, whether it be hitting and as a catcher, things as from a catching perspective, and how to use that time most effectively is a question I might have.
Well, I really like the fact that your son has the wisdom and the foresight to kind of forego the travel ball at this particular stage in his young career and focusing, getting into that strength component, which is vital in today's world of college baseball. As a catcher, you know, obviously strength, lower half, core, grip strength, things like that is critical to becoming an active everyday player at that position. And so kudos to him for having the wherewithal to do that, make that decision. The next thing is, as far as drills, the simplest everyday drill that he can do is try to catch as many bullpens or make himself available to catch bullpens, particularly of older players. Now, they don't have to be flamethrowers, but somebody that's going to allow him the opportunity to learn how to receive not only velocity, but more importantly, movement. A lot of drills that you can do here. You stand behind him, you get a wall and you throw the ball off the wall and you let him simply react and receive, react and receive. And he'll learn how to let that ball travel off the wall and receive, especially with catching, thumb under, you know, thumb around. You want to make sure that he learns how to do that with the bare hand and then with the mitt so that he's using the web of his glove. You know, that's typically another one. Another great drill to do that you can do with wiffle balls in your living room is rapid fire drills, where you can put a series of 5 to 10 wiffle balls in front of him and then just one at a time in rapid pace, boom, 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 and get him to receive, drop, receive, drop. And that's going to teach him how to read and react, read and react. Those are simple drills. As far as hitting is concerned, you know, one of the things that I mention a lot is with a broomstick or a hit stick is to get your regular repetitions in as far as the sheer volume of swinging a broomstick and a wiffle ball inside, but also doing some tee work and some soft toss or front toss work. What you want to try to do in the off season is develop the eye-hand coordination. So hitting moving objects is always what I encourage younger athletes to do, whether it's soft toss, whether it's just sitting off to the side, whether it's the right side or the left side, letting the ball travel. Those are the types of drills that are going to pay dividends on top of his foundation of strength. Now, where you are, Matt, do you find that when he's doing his strength training, is he fully engaged in the nutrition component of that as well, or just the lifting component?
So his school, he had to eat a home brought lunch every day. So I was packing in a lot of protein and trying to now kind of put on a higher calories. In the past fall, since October of last year, he gained 3 inches and 22 pounds. So he now stands 5'11", 190. So I'm backing off the calories and maintaining a higher level of protein for muscle development. But
That's excellent.
He went through that phase. So really to push him to try and get strength. And so I would say he's probably been the same since probably the spring baseball season, but he's leaned down and probably put on a little muscle too. So he's weighing the same, but I think his composition's changed a little.
Well, I love the fact that he is at that level now as a younger catcher at 190. It kind of shows that he probably is going to be in that 6'2" window, about 210, 215. And as a catcher, that's ideal. So the more reps that you can give him with regard to bullpens. Now, a lot of young athletes see that as drudgery, and they kind of shy away from that, especially the velocity standpoint. But the more opportunities he has to catch bullpens at some of these indoor facilities, one, he may earn some money because some coaches will give you, a few dollars per pitcher that you catch, but nothing can replace those live repetitions of actually receiving a moving baseball, whether it's through arm side run or curveball, breaking down and away and so forth. Those are probably, they can't be replaced. They can't be duplicated. So try to find a time of the week where he can get like maybe an hour's worth of receiving work on top of the drill work that I alluded to earlier.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great. That's very helpful.
You're welcome.
Can I ask one question on the hitting side?
Sure.
Should I focus on high velocity through a pitching machine?
It helps, but it's only a part of it. Now, I will tell you, I'm a big proponent of that with tennis balls. Now, I'm going to tell you why the tennis balls. First of all, the number one thing you want to teach a young hitter is to kind of be fearless. And so when you put a tennis ball in there and they learn how to properly get out of the way, meaning tuck and duck, as opposed to, freeze up and let it hit you off the side, make yourself as small as possible, give yourself as much flesh from your butt area down through the back of your leg. Now, does it feel good? No, but it gets them to understand how to get out of the way of a ball. The other thing is with the tennis ball, there tends to be a little movement behind that as well. And what's going to happen is when I have no fear and I know I'm turning that jugs or the pitching machine up to like say 90, 92, what I want to start to learn is ball strike, just contact. I'm not trying to drive a baseball for a home run or get lost in the metrics or the analytics of launch angle and lift and loft. What I'm trying to do is square up a baseball and make sure the direction of my hands is taking the direction of the barrel back through the 2/3 or the middle of the field. And so if we're hitting off of high velocity, a lot of boys start to think about being quick, and it leads to pull. And we start to pull off with our hip and our shoulder. But if we start to think about going back through the machine, going back through that middle portion of the field, it's important for young hitters to understand the biggest amount of real estate on a baseball field is essentially from left center to right center. I don't want to go from left field to the left field line or right field to the right field line. I want to use that middle portion of the real estate and get into those gaps. So when we're hitting off of velocity with high velocity machines, we tend to get lost in trying to be too quick, and we pull out and we pull the shoulder and we pull the hip. Just let them think about ball strike. Just let's start making consistent barrel ball strike on these balls coming off of the machine. And then we start to incorporate more advanced technique, meaning let's start looking at some sliders off of the machine, or where we could get the two-seam action from a right-hander with that run in on the hands and get the barrel and clear the hands. But initially at this stage, as a 14 or 15-year-older, our first priority is ball strike. Don't get lost in metrics and analytics and exit velocity and launch angles. If you're constantly able to put good swings on high velocity balls, and the other key component to this, Matt, is recognize that you can only take 5 to 7 swings. You're going to need a rest. Let them rest. Somebody else jumps in there, or just let them catch their breath. Don't make it a, we're going to do 50 balls and we're going to go one rapid fire. Bad habits. The barrel will dropping, the hands will start dropping. Make sure he gets enough time to every single rep off of that high velocity machine is well executed with regard to his hands, his lower half is engaged, and he feels strong with every single swing.
And it seems like, would you recommend that too, even from the front or side toss? Just let him think through his mechanics?
Absolutely. You know, a lot of, unfortunately, in today's lesson-driven world, we're under these 30-minute time parameters or 45-minute time parameters, and we're trying to squeeze so much into that 30 or 45 minutes, when in reality, like for instance, we had a small little basement, and I used to take taped up socks, or I take, you know, these, what they call Incrediballs, which are Nerf baseballs essentially. And what I would do is we would go downstairs, and with our broomsticks or our hit sticks, we would basically get our reps in down there. But also, if you're doing tee work or front or side toss, let them catch their breath. Don't try to make it as if we're trying to squeeze 50 reps into 30 minutes. Try to do it just like the college and the big leaguers do. They do it in rounds of 7. You know, they kind of get in there, they take 7 hacks, they get out. Next guy comes in. But what they're doing is they're allowing their bodies to recover. So every repetition that they take is consistent with what they want to be taking in a game. We get lost in trying to condense and kind of fit baseball into a window of 30 and 45-minute increments. But in reality, in a game, you know, we get those 3 or 4 at bats. We want them to matter. So our swings in practice have to matter. And that is kind of what gets lost with regard to travel ball, trying to squeeze everybody in, get everybody equal reps. And sometimes that can take away from the focus of being skill set developing, as opposed to just playing a game and seeing what happens.
Right. Thank you. If I could pivot to my younger son, if I could.
Absolutely.
He is 11, he'll be 12 next month. So for the first thing, as we all know, all of our children have different personalities and different interests and different just personalities, if you will. Where my oldest is very much a worker, enjoys working on the game individually as much as playing. Where my youngest, his athleticism is quite high, but he loves practicing in a team environment, not individual environment. And I've kind of pushed back on pushing that on him. From the individual practice time, and he'll enjoy with his older brother, but he just doesn't necessarily want that individual practice time. At what point, or how do, maybe any advice you have from your experience, allowing him the opportunity to come to me, or letting him recognize that he needs to put in some additional time if he wants to advance to certain levels that he says he does, but yet he only wants to do it in the team environment? It's, from my own experience, that's not necessarily, one doesn't kind of align with the other.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a competitive, I can tell you where that comes from. So your youngest one wants to feel challenged, and he wants to feel validated by not only the team around him, but he probably knows I'm a pretty good athlete. I can do things that I want to do when I want to do them. So therefore, his desire to do that as an individual is not as high as maybe your oldest son. So recognize 2 things. First of all, he's young, so you really don't have to worry about specializing or getting that extra work. But one of the things that you can do that I've done, and I get another young guy involved, and I started out with maybe once a week, and it creates this competitive environment where your youngest son starts to try to one up the other guy, or let me show you how to do it. And so sometimes in that environment where you're trying to get, whether it's hitting or throwing, receiving, what have you, if there's another peer, even an older peer, it doesn't have to be your oldest son, but maybe somebody that might be a year older, that brings out that athlete and that challenge kind of competitive environment in your youngest son, you'll see that that'll begin to be his area of where he gets his work in. But again, from 12 to 15, really 12 and 13, it's not such a big deal. At 14 and 15, especially if he has a passion for athletics as a whole, not specifically just baseball, that's when they'll start to get that maturation. They get into that middle school, they see some of the older boys being able to do some things, and they start to want to challenge themselves a little bit. I wouldn't worry about it now, but if you wanted to try and add a wrinkle to his routine, get a classmate, get a teammate, and maybe pick a day on the weekend where you say, hey, we're going to go to the park, or we're going to go do a lesson. We're going to go inside a facility, and we're going to see who can hit the most doubles at the back of the wall, or the back of the cage, or who can field the most ground balls in a row, or catch the most pop-ups in a row. When you put it in a competitive environment instead of a practice routine, those types of younger boys tend to rise up and kind of, they get more enjoyment out of it that way.
Fantastic. Thank you. One question I have for you, because
Sure.
Next year he'll be U12, but this time next year he'll be technically U13. And so this is regards to the step up. So this fall, I don't have him playing fall ball because I think we're too game heavy and too practice light. I have him in some skills instruction. But next fall, should I focus on fall ball and getting him up to the bigger diamond earlier in the fall than just in the spring? What do you recommend there, kind of that step up timeline, if you will?
Huge fan of getting and integrating the 12-year-olds onto that bigger diamond. The negative is from a pitching perspective, going from 45 or 50 feet all the way back to 60. In some states, Maryland, California, even Louisiana a little bit, they have a 54-foot mound at 13. But with regard to the big diamond, I'm a huge fan of next fall for your youngest son to try and play on the big diamond, get an understanding and a feel for the distance with the base paths and the ball coming off the bat, and understanding the dimensions when they look out onto the field. It's not that 200-foot fence or 225-foot fence looking at them. It's 350, it's 400. And so it gets intimidating if they wait till the spring. But if they go through it in the fall, it kind of eliminates a lot of that misconception, or they're not as in fear or in awe of that big diamond if they've played in it with the fall. One of the best things you can do in the fall next year is to have him play against 14 and 15-year-olders. Now, a lot of people push back on this. I get it all the time. But I will tell you, playing against other 13-year-olders is going to be boring. They don't throw a lot of strikes. It's not a competitive, like if you're in the field, not a lot of balls getting put in play. But when they're playing against the 14 and 15-year-olders, particularly in the fall, at that first kind of learning curve from 12 to 13, they see a lot more action. They see how the older boys move. They see how they compete. And it kind of gets that adrenaline flowing. And so they get more aggressive with regard to working out during the winter, because they see what the big boys do on that field at 14 and 15. So therefore, they start to put themselves in that kind of mindset, in that kind of environment, and they begin to prepare accordingly. So I cannot be a more bigger advocate of that fall 12, 13-year-old kind of year where they're making that transition. It's the last big frontier of the field changes. That the field doesn't change, they change. Obviously, they get bigger, stronger, but absolutely 1000% let him play on that big diamond next year. But try to get it in an older environment as best as you can within that area of Central Mass, and see if you can surround him with student athletes that are passionate about the sport, good, have some talent, and have some desire to play at the higher levels.
Walter, thank you. It's been really informative, and I really do appreciate your time.
You're very, very welcome, Matt. Thank you for joining us today. I want to remind everyone, I answer every question, every comment that you have. I personally will answer your comments. If you have a question that you want to submit, put it in the comment section, or you can reach me over at Twitter, BaseballLifer11. Send me a comment, a direct message there. Follow me there. Again, wait until next time when we're in the coach's corner. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Talk to you next time. Thank you, Matt.